Good afternoon, or good morning, or both to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Getting situated. Today, June 5th, Saturday, 2021. Here from Santa Monica, California, United States of America. I hope this finds you well, wherever you may be, occupying the most beautiful places of your heart, as relaxed as possible within the challenge, the ongoing challenge of life, circumstances, crises. So welcome to today's sharing from my heart to yours. Thank you. This is the fourth part. It was never intended to be a series of sharings on my own most personal life challenge. I've titled it Uncertain Futures, which is, I think, appropriate for all of us. And the angel of death has asked to dance, which I think is also appropriate for all of us. But more specifically to me, I'd like to just take this time to engage my own edge and update those special people near me, who've been close to me, who are close to me, in their beautiful support. As of yesterday, I came to the decision to not pursue medical surgery on my diagnoses. That came as a result of an emergency room visit on April 11th. If I may, just a brief overview of what was discovered in that unexpected visit to the hospital here in Santa Monica. I went with an acute pain. I was talking to my beloved dear friend Janine Davies in Vancouver, and we both concurred, oh my God, this is an emergency room event. So after being admitted, they discovered through a CAT scan what's known as an acutely enlarged ascending aorta aneurysm, all new words to me, which is the largest artery leaving the upper part of the heart. And it has an arch at the top, and it branches off into the upper extremities of the body and the brain. And over the course of the last 7 weeks, it's been discovered that there's an issue with the valve that the aorta is connected to, as well as what's known as the arch. I'm also told by multiple surgeons that it's one of the more extreme, complex surgeries possible on a human being. As an investigative journalist and an active meditator dedicated to the practice of mindfulness, deep discernment, inquiry, not taking things for granted or on first encounter, I've done a lot of due diligence, a lot of emotionality. Needless to say, it came early on as a shock, a blunt shock. I could not sleep. I can't even sleep now. It's very difficult to sleep. It's been that way for the last 7 weeks. My everything has been interrupted. And I'm going to stumble through this, so please, if I can encourage you to, embrace the space with some degree of compassion and patience, if you so choose. This is a big decision for me to choose a non-surgical response to this condition. It does not come easily. And although I have a very strong, courageous part of my heart and mind and body, having been a monk, having suffered numerous illnesses, brief encounters as a non-combatant in areas of extreme conflict and war, refugee camps in Burma, Shan State, Karen State, in the country of Myanmar, briefly during the genocide in the former Yugoslavia. I can deal with complexity. This is a blunt blow to my continuity. And continuity here is the deep disruption of love, of the dream, of intimacy, of hope, in all the classical human spiritualized ways. And the diagnosis was very clear. It's, Mr. Clements, you have a fatal illness. You will die, we don't know when. They use it's not intentional, fear bomb of a ticking bomb, a short fuse, an airline hose, not a car radiator hose, ready to burst. You will crash. You will die. 5% of those whom this aorta survive dissection, which is a fraying of the artery, or the more extreme case, a rupture, die within a few minutes to a few days. 50-50 whether you'll survive surgery. Most never make it to emergency. An extreme form of suffering and pain if it does dissect and rupture. So it's not just the complexity of the interruption of this strange phenomenology of prediction of time, future, longevity. But the type of death, if elective surgery is not undertaken, which I'm not going to do that at this time, is a catastrophic type of searing pain. And I have spoken to people who have had the aorta identical to the condition I have. I've spoken to them where they didn't even get the diagnosis and it ruptured. What that was like. Very intense conversation. Just the other day I spoke to a gentleman put in touch together through a very mutual dear friend who has the identical diagnoses, the ascending aorta, the arch, and the valve. Who chose the surgery. I have to say, and it was successful. He's 11 weeks into recovery, but boy, what a traumatic conversation. Fairly strong, but blunt, and in more resilient or poetic moments I could share, but it's the details are intense. Taken to emergency room, having blacked out twice in a pool of blood post-surgery. Blessed that he was married and his wife found him 4 hours later. Taken to ER, not knowing what was going on. Fluid around the heart, inflammation. Radical complications. It's a success story. One of the most complex surgeries, as I gather from the surgeons in my research, and this gentleman, possible. 12 hours in the surgery room. 12 talented men and women without a break on a lung and oxygen machine. You're technically brain dead for a couple of hours. The cognitive complexities that are inevitable. I pride myself on my mindful clarity. To lose cognitive skill and acuity would be like, fuck, man, why do I want to sing that drunk song? All for longevity. But I don't want to get too carried away with the philosophical edges. I'd like to give you a little bit of insight just into my process. Sensitive, just sensitive, because I'll soon be leaving here, and I'll get into that on June 25th. And I'm leaving the vicinity here in Los Angeles of where my research has taken place with top-of-the-line surgeons and the protocol of the weeks of engaging them, becoming familiar with them, my principal care doctor, the safety of this temporary abode that is now coming to a close, and I'm choosing to move on, but equally choosing not to have surgery and to move from this so-called safe haven where, if anything were to happen, just like when the April 11th ER event happened, I was just a minute away from Santa Monica Hospital. But where I'm going, which is unknown to me, I really wish I knew the craving more than ever in my life of a home. If I had my druthers, yes, Kula 200, those 2-acre parcels, a cottage, a home. Who is a philanthropist out there? Bequeath me with a home. You can have it after I die. I'm looking for a home where I can do what I'm doing here, there, and just have a day in between. I know what I want to continue to do. I want to go deeper into my meditative heart. I want to commune with those special people in a very sanctified, reverential space. I want to do everything possible nutritionally, visualization-wise. It's not like non-surgery. It's the deep engagement with not alternative healings, but with Dhamma. The Dhamma cure has been a repetitive theme and action throughout my adult life, and ever more radiant post April 11th when the diagnoses of the aneurysm, and even more today because I'm choosing non-surgical means at this time. We don't know how long the aneurysm has been there in the chest. We don't know its growth pattern. Yes, the surgeons tell you, they've made it very explicit. Ticking bomb is an unambiguous analogy, Mr. Clements. We can't predict exactly when, but many, many, many thousands of people have ruptures of that aneurysm or dissections of that aneurysm at smaller sizes than your own aneurysm. And they often, frequently die a painful death. And we've discovered it. It's a miracle of discovery. And the surgery is there. I know it's not an easy thing to contemplate. The percentages of walking across the street, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 100 don't make it across. Another 3, 4, 5 have complications in which they never even wish they took the chance to walk across the street. It's Las Vegas in your heart. And it's so easy to get lost in that paradigm, that maze of narratives, conventional narratives. And I'm trying to really decathex, if you will, from all of that. It's not contraband. These people are amazingly compassionate people, but they are body mechanics. It's hard for me to even find a highly refined psychoanalyst, therapist that can meet me in that very rarefied field of shared, cognitive, intimate, mindful, trans-existential, beautiful, poetic play Ubuntu, or a lover, or even myself at times in my own I want to dance and commune there. That's the point to me. It's like the interruptive of my body. This gentleman told me it took him 5 weeks to lift a coffee cup. He lifted up his shirt, looked like he had a zipper down his chest. 2 emergency visits to the emergency room post-surgery. If it wasn't for my wife, Alan, I wouldn't make it through. I cannot tell you enough. It is a blunt process. Put it all in place if you do it. I cannot emphasize that enough. Put everything in place. This is my thinking. I have nothing in place. I'm in a temporary location. blessed by the goodness of my benefactors, but I must move on. I'm choosing not to be in this city. This isn't my home monastery. This isn't my sacred space. This house has been, but the city is not. I'm not sure where it is. I often think of Bali. But there's quarantines. It's away from anything medical and sane. It's a foreign country. It's sacred. I have friends there. I walk softly and I don't wear shoes. I love the food. I love the birds and the flowers and the incense. It's sacred. I could die there. They could just simply, the Banjar would simply say, he's asked to be cremated, a holy transition. But it's not long-term home, or is it? And I think about long-term home. I'm an American. I would just simply like a transitional space just to carry on. So I've pared it way down in this post-surgery narrative to just the next 2 months, really. Just 2 months, maybe 3, where likely, if it all works out, and it's, you know, here it is on the July 4th weekend in America, and the car rentals jumping around here on Maui are astronomical. You can barely get a car per day for $175, $200 a day. U-Hauls, friends are telling me, are renting for $400, $500, $600 a day. For God's sake, you can rent a villa in Bali for that much, but it's not America. It's not home. It's not near medical support. My daughter couldn't easily come there from Canada. My friends couldn't easily come there. There's not a hospital like they do have in Honolulu. Or if I wanted to get surgery based upon the next CT scan 2 months down to see if it's grown. Has it grown 1 millimeter? That's fast, they say. Usually it's 1 millimeter a year. And so I kind of want to see this navigational. I want to do my Galileo process of plotting its growth. If I make it, God willing. If I don't, let me be clear to myself. With this diagnosis, and even pre, and right now as I'm speaking and feeling, I don't noticeably feel a fear of death. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to go high five, hey angel, you know, you and me together forever. But okay, in my better moments when I'm feeling it, I'm under the fatigue right now of days without sleep at night, nights without sleep. And the morass, my mind isn't just connected easily to the minutia of decals and numbers and millimeters and times. And I've seen 40 different doctor's appointments, 7 or 8, 10 Zoom sessions. It's so fatiguing. And I won't go off on my own. I have my friends, but I am here alone. And yes, it concerns me. It's not easy. What's my ideal? It'd be lovely to have someone who just cared for the errands, that cared for the various day-to-day things. Quite frankly, in all transparency, it's very hard to even get out of bed. I do these live streams in the morning here, God willing, because it's a form of me being able to hear myself, not feeling so alone. I'm able to do a form of existential, spiritual self-therapy. And I feel better through the process, not just about my own process, but even in this new series of talks, presenting new insights and strategies and forms of activism to support my brothers and sisters in Burma. It's not stress. It's a sacred duty. I feel nurtured by it, tragic as it is. I'm not going to turn down my compassion or my empathy to preserve my so-called future. If I die, I'd rather be known of having given it everything I've gotten, wouldn't you? I want to sing till the very last note through the filter of love, of compassion. Yes, I've got to turn the dial back to myself. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean abandoning the world of others, but yes, I could use help. It's not easy for me to ask for help. It's not easy for me to ask for support. And yes, I'll get into the pragmatism of all of that towards the end of this talk. There's ways that you can help. You know exactly who pays the bills in your home, your flat, your mortgage. Every one of us live based upon being embedded in an economic system requiring transactions. It's called crypto. It's called money. If only. I've been a mendicant for 50 years, walking softly on the earth, trying the best I can to help support the betterment of others, often unrecognized through my activism. Books that I love to do, but I never thought of them as something to sell commercially. I've stopped even asking for funding for talks or groups. I don't want any font with the transactional money for my time. I gave that up. I want to continue to give that up. It takes a lot of emotional courage personally to give that up. And you have to be willing to live really, really simply and to really walk your walk in that area. And if you want to support, yes, I would not refuse $100. I would not refuse $1,000. I would not refuse 10,000, 100,000. The transference, frankly, of a property. I've got a Patreon site under Alan Clements World Dharma. I've got a PayPal site on my website. You could talk to my friend Janine. You could send money to her through that. We've got a nonprofit in New York. There's all kinds of ways to take whatever you feel that you wish to give to support. And if you're really asking me what I really need, quite frankly, I'd love to be on Maui. I just don't know how to get there, how to make it work. I don't know how to get a car. I don't know how to get a home. Yes, there's a couple of people, maybe you're listening, who've beautifully offered something. But I'm so sensitive of not being too in proximity with families and a community of people that I love but don't know all that well. And really, I'm a kind of hermit, mendicant. So I like my quietude, and I kind of stick my head out like a turtle every now and again and want to do a butterfly or a hummingbird act within this shell. And I go, hi, do you want to talk? Do you want to speak? Do you want to dance? Do you want to kiss? Do you want to meditate? That's my style. And so, yes, I'm really looking for that type of support right now because I need it. I don't know where I'm going on the 25th of June, but I know it's right to go, and I know it's right not to undergo this surgery right now. I don't have the psychological, emotional, or the physical resilience to make it through. I feel I would die. And I think those of you who are sensitive and know your own interior or emotional landscape, yes, it makes sense to have surgery, but not at this time. Maybe it makes sense at some time in the future, but at the same time, I want to give over to my Dharma cure, my psychological cure, my emotional cure. Do I believe in miracles? Yes, I do, but I'm a pragmatist. I take pride in the food that I put into my body. I try my very best to drink my red wine with mindful, sacred presence. I'd love to do some organic psilocybin on a very low dose, a micro dose, the rare higher dose with a sacred savant, Dakini, Tantrika, goddess, Buddha. I spent the last year in this room itself writing a book called Extinction X-Rated. I, every day, reflected deeply on what is Alan Clements' heart yearning for. I asked myself, those of you who've read the book, you know, the question was, why live? What is the point of living? What is the point of pursuing tomorrow? And what do you, in your undone existential, spiritual, physical, erotical, mindful, nibbanic presence, what's not yet in the fidelity of what you want to create? What a gift I had to have those questions in the forefront of my soul. They're in my book. You can read about it. It's my own personal mandala, my own war with samsara, my own challenge with good and evil, coming to that higher radiance of a unified, nibbanic, unconditional presence. I did come to a conclusion. I do want to live. I do want to commune with those special people that I live for and with. I do want to meet new people. I love the interaction. I'm not fond of Zoom. I'm not fond of the digital. I think if I were to really assess my interior landscape, I'm probably semi-depressed, if not a little bit more than semi. Why? I haven't been physically, emotionally, sexually, romantically, godly, existentially touched in a way that I've known most of my life, because I've chosen to be here in this home, sequestered to write a book. Equally, our governor put us under severe lockdown, especially here in the pandemic epicenter, almost like India, here in Los Angeles. And so I chose to do that. Now, under this diagnosis, I can't even be around people for fear if I get COVID, there's no chance of surgery. So it's so counterintuitive and counter-physical, counter-existential to everything I feel. And I'm a little bit vulnerable, crying out inside of myself. Maui's been a healing environment. There are a lot of beautiful men and women there that I've known, layers of them, young, middle, older, some have died. I know the land, I've swum in the ponds, I've done diving into the oceans, I've walked the beaches, I've made love, I've cried, I've hurt. I've done so many different shows at the MAC. I've got a new show that I'm really working on, Dead Man Walking, Freedom Never Dies. I wish the MAC would open. If not, I'll do it live outside. I want to do a retreat, calling all girls and boys worldwide. If you want to participate in some form, no charge retreat, a Dana-based event. My friend Summer out there in Hawaii, in her own spare time with her own challenges, is looking for a facility, a home, a mansion. If you have one, donate it, bequeath it to me, to her temporarily for 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. I am happy to commune with you in a centerless, open space where we meditate, we do yoga, we sing, we cry, we touch, we consecrate, we ascend, we feel, we ask questions, we write, we eat in silence, we go home, we stay together, we do something remarkable that's sacred, that's special. For me, it's a healing tribe, a healing environment. The most special moments of my life primarily have been in the sanctity of a monastery, a meditation center, a retreat environment. Bali is that, but you can't work there. You can't publicly declare things. In Hawaii, as an American, yes, the masks are coming off. You can be open, you can transact, you can do anything you want to do, but it's busy with tourism. The streets are bumper to bumper. The costs are astronomical. And the land is beautiful, and there's some beautiful people there. The real estate is going up by the second. May you bequeath me with a piece of property. Who wants to come together to develop a sacred community? I'm going out there also to look into something that's been intentional for some years. Is it a home? There's no better place to go. You have to be somewhere, a friend told me last night. Why not Maui? But can I make it work? How can I make it work? I have to ask, please support. Seek ways to communicate with me or those near me on the ways in which you can support this vision happening. The days are near. June 25th is when I want to leave. It was so hard talking to this gentleman about his surgery. It was so up close. It brought up so many emotions for me. It brought up loneliness. It brought up aloneness. It brought up fear. It wasn't about death. It brought up, that temporary nostalgia when you look deep across the terrain of your history, your memory, your past projection of who you're not. And like here you are at this stage of your life, Alan, and you're moving on with the diagnosis of a fatal illness unless you undertake this incredibly complicated open heart surgery. And you are principally alone. Yes, you're loved by a lot, but hey, I go up in the morning, I go to the store alone, I go to bed alone. Why are you alone? Burma's closed down. I'm now a bona fide terrorist according to the military tribunal there. My friend Daw Aung San Suu Kyi is likely to go unnoticed to life imprisonment. My friend U Win Tain, who went to prison in support of our book, The Voice of Hope. My monastery closing down. I'm hearing that nuns and monks are nearing starvation in some areas. The country's near a humanitarian collapse. The economy's collapsed. People are going to prison unnoticed. It's like, oh my God, I can't tune it out. but basically the world has become infinitely small. My sacred havens, Australia's closed. I've often gone to Byron Bay to be with my friends Paul and Liz and Temple Byron, the greatest healing environment on the planet. Can't even get into Australia. Can't even get into Canada unless you really go through the paperwork of essential this, essential that, and even so, it's a COVID hotel at several $1,000s. I don't have several $1,000s for that. And then another 8 or 9 days of quarantine, and then an Airbnb that there's hardly any. It's summer there in Vancouver, and it's like it's just I can barely make a salad right now. Is this an SOS? Yes, it's an SOS. I don't know what the support is: financial support, emotional support, real estate support. I mean, whatever the form of support that you want to offer, I'm moving on from here, and I've always done it no matter what. I left this country nearly 50 years ago on my own reconnaissance as a bona fide, unthinkable, multiple addict, whether it be narcotics and cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes. I left here. I shaved my head in New York and flew to Burma on a one-way ticket, not knowing that I can get an extension. I had to do it. I did it. I detoxed in that monastery. I survived. I elevated. I took it higher. I met some of the greatest human beings ever to be born on this planet. U Tin U, the former general in Burma, a great monk friend of mine, the founder, a non-violent savant with Aung San Suu Kyi and U Win Tin of the National League for Democracy, where this terrorist group in Burma right now wants to dissolve it and denigrate it. By way of saying, I will carry on. But it's a challenge because I said yes to the therapeutics of the Dhamma healing. And I'm saying at this time, not an adamant no to surgery, but a hiatus from the surgical narratives. I think I'm also suffering the malaise of the burden of the medical narratives. It's so foreign to the deep intuitive realms, not to mention the realms of the organic and the neutronics of subtle frequency, belief, actualization. I mean, I don't know about you, but ever since meditation and the psychedelic and yoga combined into a more intimate feeling body, I define my life based upon my accessing of the multiplicities of frequencies, light waves, energies, physics of inner beingness and outer beingness. Enlightenment to me is just the study of the frequencies of energy. It's not an idea, a location. Gravity is an energetic. The reduction of gravity releases us into a much more liberated freedom from gravity. The same thing with the enlightening process, right? It's a frequency, removing ourselves from the gravitational forces of greed, of delusion, totalitarianism, me, and me, my needs. So many meditators, as you know, come unglued when they're stripped of their home voluntarily, even their own beds, their timing. They meditate and they become naked and they become terrified. They realize how deeply embedded their consumerism is, their needs for pleasure, for the timing of profit, for their needs, what they want on their time. And yet they're just simply sitting there, and do you have access to your own beauty without that stuff? This led me on a long, decade-long discovery of the mind of the political prisoner, the girl and the boy who consciously chooses conscience over power, privilege, and continuity. I've never been more heart-opened by my desire and skill to stay in intimate proximity to these rare beings. They're very rare beings on the planet, much more interesting to me than yogis or meditators, and certainly Dharma teachers. The political prisoners, especially when it's co-joined with those few that have a deep, holy, Dhammic meditative relationship, like Dosu, U Win Tin, U Tinu, U Win Tain, so many of them. And my friend Uchua Zu from the Irrawaddy, a deep resonant frequency accessing to the deeper intelligences that aren't confined by the bar, aren't confined by hardship, aren't confined by the narratives of even disease or death. And so I'm drawing strength from these radical revolutionaries right now, by way of saying, to challenge, to be walking on every day right now, knowing, and I've got to really decode the prison camp, and I really say it's a prison camp of the narrative that you can die. You will die in the prediction of a very problematic suffering. To give you a little bit of a window into this process, if I may, just yesterday I was at hospital again. I posted an image of that on Instagram and Facebook, where I was talking in my last session with my principal care doctor. We're talking about the aneurysm, the aorta, the secondary issues in the thyroid, in the lungs, the spine, and the valve, and the arch, and the decision. We talked over, Alan, what is the decision? And we're talking, and I'm saying, no to surgery right now. And he understands. I get it. When you put it all together the way you've talked to me now over the last 7 weeks, I get it. This is not an easy decision. I'm right with you. And I said, I have to be very frank with you, Robert, that, I'm leaving. I'm going possibly to Bali. There's no medical support there. Even in Hawaii, I've been told by friends of a friend who worked in the hospitals, don't think that the hospitals here can save you with dissection or rupture or even an elective surgery on your aneurysm. They can't. Even in Honolulu, they're not that talented. This is a highly, highly refined surgery. So don't count on the Hawaiian Islands to save you. That's a big thing, And so I'm telling him this, and I'm saying, I don't think I have an overt fear of death. It comes and goes. I know it's on a deep level. When I really envision the few beloved people, will I never see you again? Well, I've done my work. Yes, I'm down with that. I could do it. Do I want to see you again? Yes, I want to be with you right now. Daughter, friends. Yeah, I want to live in a sanctity of space where I get to wake up and make tea with someone. What a delight that would be, to go to the beach with my daughter and walk and swim and come back for lunch and meditate and whatever we may do and watch a film at night. I've not seen her. I came back to America to see her, but I haven't had that gift. So yes, there's reasons to live and there's no reasons to fear dying, but I've got to give over to this cure. And at the same time, I told the doctor, I'm walking on right now. And he said, that's a big decision, That's a really big decision. And I told him about the needs that I had regarding how to mitigate the type of pain. And he's been an emergency room doctor. He's seen dissections. He's seen ruptures. I'm right there with you, Alan. We don't know the future. I'm with you in your decision to move on right now, to come back wherever you are, to get a CT scan in 3 months to see if it's grown, then reevaluate. But from now until then, yes, you will not be near ER units where there will be success to revive you. And yes, you will die. And you will die a painful death. And I know that you want to talk to me, as we've talked about, what pharmaceutical drugs are there to help you in your mitigating of the pain or in your so-called final exit. You don't qualify for terminal hospice. I can't give you what's required to take your life. But there are ways to combine certain things that certainly allow you I can't even use the word here, to skillfully do what you feel is most important for the salvation of what you consider to be holy in yourself. They're one-off decisions and one-off discussions. You don't often have them, clearly. I mean, and so now I have mitigating pharmaceutical substances that will be worn around my neck so that if I have the luxury of not falling over in a dissection or a rupture, to be very frank and graphic with you, because I want you to know what I know, for those of you who are family and friends who are tuning into my life or care. I can't type very well and text easily anymore. So I have that which is required to mitigate the pain if I'm able to put what's required in my mouth. And as the doctors and the surgeons and as my friends know, it's been recommended to not live alone. But when you live alone, you just don't order in, live with me. That's a delicate, sensitive topic. And if you're not able to administer these things, the person with you can. And I've talked it over with a few friends. I've talked it over in my own meditation. And it's such a challenging request, a task for someone. Just to ask them of that, to help me die. I don't want to go to emergency room. I don't. So I've gone up and done an advance directive. I've got to get it notarized. I put a will in place, and it's like just to get on a flight, to wear this stuff on your neck, to drive a car which you shouldn't be driving, to go to a location to be alone where you shouldn't be alone. And it's like, oh God, just take my life. And all I want to do is, go right to mindful euthanasia tonight. My whole book, my existential, Extinction X-Rated, is based upon mindful euthanasia, why stay alive? And I deliberated for the course of a year, and the book is only 12 hours, 270 pages that talk about my interior process over 12 hours. And I'm right at this desk. There's a vial, a syringe of morphine and a high dose of acid that I did at different times to explore that question, and here it is. And I don't know whether or not I'm creating destiny. I don't know whether or not I am walking backwards into the future. I'm slightly embarrassed that I'm speaking about my own condition. I don't know what else to do except to trust the deepest heartbeat. But for me personally, it's really rock and mountain, rock and hard place. It's big time rock and hard place. And there's no, we all live with mortality over our left, right shoulders, always in the forefront of our heart and brain. Tick tock, in breath, out breath, right? We all know that, and yet there's no buffer right now. The buffer is receding so fast. I guess my fear really is whether I'll have the courage to carry on, because I was talking to my other beloved friend in Hawaii yesterday, and both of us have similar existential, physical challenges. And it's just very hard to find a reason to live. I try to lift up the hope, the joy. I've got some things to live for, but as soon as they're on the stained glass and I'm painting like Notre Dame, it's like I put the brush down and I don't need to finish the painting. It was an exercise in the moment. Some have suggested, why don't you just fall in love? Well, I am. I mean specifically with someone, a woman, and to live in the fidelity of that tantrified, ubuntufied, romanticized, celibate, sapiosexual, trans goddess, enlightened state. Bring on a harem of those energies. For God's sake, where is one? I haven't found anyone. And I don't know that I have the ability. I don't even know what the ability. I have no living memory of what it means to be in that level of intimate proximity in recent times. I am so different than a month ago, so different than a year ago, so different than 2 years ago, so unthinkably unrecognizable to 3 years ago. Trust, walk softly. I get fatigued when I think about tomorrow, the machinations of putting it all together. Bless my beloved friend Jenny, who offered to offer a beautiful flat, an apartment just up the street here for a few months. Namaste. The same gift on Maui would be great. I don't want to be in LA. I don't. All I want is this safe space. I thought of Wailea, Kihei. I don't want to be in a commercial condo zone. But the beach is beautiful. But I live in a sacred Bali-esque space here. When I think of Bali, I think of, oh God, I can breathe. I know the birds. I know the orchids. I know the foods. But to get there, 35 hours, quarantining in Jakarta, filling out the visa things, and going through immigration, and the flood. I just go, oh, yeah, it's dizzying, but I want a home. Where? I keep coming back to Lower Kula, Kula 200. Please bequeath me, philanthropists of the gods. I would love to have a sacred space there. And meanwhile, my beloved friends on Maui, you know who you are, have offered a beautiful space. And you, sister, have offered a beautiful space. Although I get a little bit sensitive to the cold and the damp, but it's summertime, and in the isolation, I get a little freaked out. I don't do well in isolation. I walk everywhere here in Santa Monica. I don't feel alone. I've grown to know my hummingbirds and squirrels. And so I'm crying out the human cry, that's all. Please help, please support. Please give. Another side of this, if I can just keep going on. Every now and again on a meditative level, I drop into, what's all the drama about, Alan? It's not really drama. This is just, for me, just being radically vulnerable and human, which obviously you do and we do together in our own intimate human ways. But, you know, in the Buddhist tradition, they use the word anatta, emptiness of self. I'm a son of the Buddha, a very unconventional one, a spiritually incorrect one. But the monasteries in Burma where I lived, they understand me. I've been allowed to go there and lead retreats, co-lead them, and bring other foreigners there. But I don't define myself as a Buddhist. But I do love so much of what I've learned and keep learning in the experiential expansion of the states of consciousness, the principles and the values, in the radiance of freedom. Anatta, the emptiness of self. Right now, sometimes I walk, I sit, I chant, I meditate, and just feel that right now, although I'm talking, you're listening, you're abiding, you're walking, you're doing whatever we're doing together in this global cosmological dance of interrelated conditions, that this concept of anatta points to that there is no inherent centrality to the ecosystem of totality. There is no unchanging subjective reference to anything through the senses, external or internal. Thoughts are devoid of thinker. And so life and death, the Buddha is said to have described enlightenment as the deathless, because suffering there is, these are words attributed to him, suffering there is, consciousness has the capacity to perceive its limits, and therefore there's the perception of an identity experiencing suffering. But there's no one behind that experience that sees itself as I. The I is an illusion. There is no one talking right now. It is like, wow, existential Houdini, right? The biggest unthinkable card trick in the universe. The Buddha picked the pocket of that propaganda and said, entities suffer based on a fixation to the delusion of separateness, of I, things happening to I. And you can't control the phenomenology, the landscape, the radiance of events. You can't tell yourself to not be born. You can't tell yourself to not sleep. You can't tell yourself to be enlightened on the moment. You can't tell yourself to overcome fear tonight. You can't tell yourself not to die. Therefore, self is not able to be controlled. Therefore, it's an illusion. There is no perfect control other than through the wisdom to overcome the hoax of self. And that anatta thing is very interesting to me because it plays into the concept, although there's aging and there's disease and there's death, but there's no one who ages, gets old, has a disease, or dies. And there's something so radically remarkable to embody the transcendent wisdom, the punya of that event, not as a thought, but as a direct experience. And they also say in meditative circles, and I know this from my own experience, the more that one can occupy the truer wisdom experiences of mind-body, anatta, anicca, impermanence, and self-concentric suffering, if you attach to anything, the dukkha element. But if you occupy anatta, you will occupy the understanding of anicca, and you will occupy the overcoming of suffering. Okay, that's really radical surgery. But prolong your life, Alan, so you can continue to do really deep Dhamma surgery. You need more time to feel good, to be able to have some joy with your lover and your friend and your daughter and the beaches, your poetry, your books, and your legacy before you die, and then you can get back to anicca, anatta, and dukkha. You know where I'm going with that. And so I have seen in this process, when I'm feeling more strength, psychic strength, this is a sleep deprivation issue at the moment, when I'm feeling more psychic strength and spiritual strength and mindful strength, I have never felt so vibrantly interconnected, if you will, to anatta. Yes, things are there, but the more that I have the wisdom to see them as causal events, concurrently arising with the phenomena of a mindful presence with the phenomena itself, judgment, fear, love, insight, thoughts, sound, color, vibration, frequencies, in pairs arising and disappearing in a causal cognitive ecosystem without centrality. You can walk around the world, but you cannot find the source of nature, right? There is no central source of being. There is no permanent, fixed self, right? We know that intellectually. But this particular diagnosis of the acutely ascending aorta aneurysm, when I'm in a more strengthened meditation, I go deep into the anatta experience, and it takes the fear out of the future. It takes the fear out of the presence, and it delivers me into a transcendent ease of being that isn't identified with the aneurysm, with my heartbeat, with my lung, or with time. And where I connect my soul is in the paramis, the nutrients to my own wisdom, the 10 beautifications of consciousness. So in other words, my Dhamma has become more accentuated. On Maui, if it happens in the retreat that I want to co-create with those people, write into me. I want to create an experiential environment where we can occupy, play together, experience individually and together anicca, anatta, and dukkha, and the evolution of the paramis, and overcome our predilection to inhabit the propaganda of illusions. Old age is an illusion. Disease is an illusion. My suffering is an illusion. It's just pain, sensation. In breath, out breath, just like we meditate. Meditation right now is so rad, so cool, so heightened in my life. And that's all I'm asking for, is I'm craving my next monkdom. Calling all friends and philanthropists and lovers of Dhamma and truth, and who want to create the eroticized ubuntification of shared space. Help support this vision, please, brothers and sisters, wherever you are. If you know someone with those types of funds and creative possibilities, put them in touch with me. Put them in touch with Janine or Summer in Hawaii. And let's create that. I need a home June 25th. I would love to have someone pick me up, deliver a car. I can't afford to rent one. Bringing food. I don't want to go to Whole Foods and keep shopping right now. I am fatigued. I want to stop and just simply feel and be quiet. It's a plea, it's a scream, it's a cry, it's a hope. Please come and support this shared vision. Kula 200 is the ideal, beautiful place. It can be somewhere in that vicinity. But I want to really give radiance to my yogi. I came on this earth to be a yogi. You know that, girls and boys. You know who are driving that soul of yours, that cognitive impulse, that mystical rave scream of your goddess. You know what it means to live in fidelity to the truest sense of who you are. We are yogis, trans-religious yogis, deeply embodied in the goddess God of inner and outer beingness. We're dedicated to the freedom from fear and the elevation of love. Hello, savants, come play with me in that sacred field, Lower Kula 200. I can buy a house there if you just give me about 2.5 million, probably 2 million US, and it's done. Talk to my friend Tara Grace. She can accrue the transaction tomorrow. Calling all support systems, calling all lovers, calling all yogis. Whether you come together with me or not, wherever you are, you're in my heart. May you radiate as high as possible, more than ever, in your yogidom, whatever that means to you, to identify the qualities of your consciousness that you attribute as states of mind that deliver the liberation from greed, self-fixation, selfishness, narcissism, and elevate the status of freedom, love, compassion, goodwill, not just for our own sanctity. My scream today, my poem today, I dedicate not only to my future life in the dimension known as Tusita, where it is said that the next Buddha is residing with my own and his and her own samsaric sangha. Maitreya, my friend, I want to be in your company. Men and women in the Deva realm of Tusita, I want to reunite with you, boys and girls on the planet that I've known and that I will come to know in these next days of my life, God willing. I want you to co-join, if you feel inclined, to come to the Tusita Yoga Barn, where there's going to be an ecstatic dance party of love and meditation never before known on planet Earth. A trans-burning woman, man into a fidelity of beauty. Come play there in that realm in Tusita. Meanwhile, I want to create in Lower Kula a Tusita dimension where we can do exactly what we're going to do in Tusita realm as devas in our next lifetime before taking birth in some human loka, wherever it may be, to all come into fruition as arhants, fully awake beyond fear, greed, delusion, beyond the fear of old age, disease, and death, have all the full range of psychic powers. How delightful it would be to spend time with you, making love without ever having to touch for 1,000,000 years, and to co-create castles and children and gods and thoughts. I want to know the splendor of this cognitive field and then go out into the nibbana called parinibbana, a dissolving of the fire of conditions for presence into that immaculate, unconditioned release. In breath, out breath. Momentarily doing that right now. So this is my way of saying thank you for being in my life. I'm choosing non-surgery right now. I'm not giving it completely a nix, but I hope, God willing, that I keep it together, stay alive, find what's needed. I put it out, circulate this video among people that might support or want to participate or both. And now you know how I feel. Now you know what I need. Now you know what I'm asking for. And I leave it in your good hands to support me as best as you feel inclined, and from the best of my heart to yours. And allow me to conclude here with a few practical notes. How can you support me in this vision, in this process? I have a Patreon site in which people can donate and pledge any amount that you want that is received by me in our nonprofit monthly Patreon, Alan Clements World Dharma. I wish I could fulfill the gifts that are provided there, but I don't think I have it in me to do consultations. But know that you're welcome to come to Maui, and if it's done as well as a digital event, know that you can belong and participate in a digital retreat. We did it in Bali at Ian and Terry's villa, and very likely I would like to see this thing broadcast and let people worldwide to participate in an online event. So Patreon is one way. My website, alanclements.com or worlddharma.com, under support, there's PayPal. It goes directly to our nonprofit, and you're welcome to donate a one-time offering of any amount. It certainly is needed and would be radically helpful. I am leaving here June 25th. If there's a place on Maui, please let me know. If there's a car that you want to offer, please let me know. I hope after that exploration to return to Bali, God willing, where I want to see friends and to go into another stage of healing. But I want to do it after I've done the next CT scan. So that's my vision. And may I conclude, as a final legacy in my life, and I don't want to be morbid about this, I have many books that I am deeply proud of. They're also on my website, Extinction X-Rated. I am deeply, intimately, emotionally connected to. But most of all right now, my very beloved colleague and friend, Fergus Harlow, we co-authored the books Burma's Voices of Freedom which I cannot encourage you enough. If you want to understand Burma's revolution, Spring Revolution, this is an intimate study over the course of 35 years, Burma's Voices of Freedom. But I and Fergus and a few other people, my heart-centric gift back to the world is I've spent my life, let me close here, please just take my time. I define my life by the integrity to make conscious choices. I failed a lot of the time. You know who you are, that you've been hurt by me. Conscious choices to be the best human I can be, beyond, and I don't want to denigrate those who pursue the world of form, but I'm a mystical creature like you. You know that. It's not some kind of highfalutin compliment to oneself, but it is, and you know that. I don't define my life by my body. I'm connected to it. I do yoga, I sit, I fast. But my life is not confined by my lungs and my heart, my physical heart. I'm in a trajectory of enlightenment. I don't see it as a conclusion, but a radiant process, by way of saying that the constituents of that radiance I call the life of the meditator, the Dhamma artist, the yogi. I look back at the entirety of my life. It's been pretty well dedicated to doing everything possible to occupy that radiance. By way of saying, the exploration has led me down a lot of dark holes, cul-de-sacs, erotic encounters, beautiful sacred moments of silence, horrific areas, killing fields, war zones, rapes, beheadings. The range of existence, I've had a fair degree of first-hand experience, seeing and witnessing it. Within that, there's been a distillation. I'm an active note taker. I've always said, document the evidence of your liberation, because that's compassion in action. Who I am and who you are is the result of a lot of men and women and non-humans who've lived a legacy of radical yogidom. They have given us the evidence of their wisdom. They've come to us in holy books, the Tipitaka, the Upanishads, the Quran, on and on, so many books, so many psychologists, so many psychonauts. What I've done in my life for the past 25 years, post-genocide in Yugoslavia, was to create an image, a vision called World Dharma. A transformational, intersecting set of teachings that don't belong to someone. They're like a decentralized blockchain, a leaderless revolution, a teacherless teaching. The teachings, that of Dharma, far exceed the teacher. That's my belief. I'm not important. The transformational teachings, and I use that as energetics, not a dogma. They're not set in stone. They're not fossilized. By way of saying, my legacy, my gift back to the world coming up, we're developing it right now. It was filmed last year in Bali. It's also being filmed over the last year and a half, and we're going to continue to film the extra segments needed. But the prime of the course, trans course, a course beyond courses, a World Dharma course, a distillation of the transformational teachings that I've seen in my lifetime. I want to present that, and it will be offered freely. It will be without a leader. It'll be guided by a group of advisors and a few other people. Yes, there may be some form of remuneration for those people. I want nothing. But to enter and to participate in this course video, and again, I'm a real believer that you are the steward of your you are your teacher. We know that. no matter how connected, the guru is done. Kalyanamita to me means an individual who supports you in individuating from her, him. Oh, the apprentice model, that's right. However, you make the decisions of your soul. Well, this World Dharma 2.0 course that's being developed, and we hope to have it up. I found someone recently in Bali who will build the platform, and God willing, and I will leave it in my will if I die, how to do it, and pray the funds are there to make it real and to have it ongoing and offered freely. But it's an invitation, it's coming up soon, and it's a distillation of everything I've ever known. Many of you don't know, Janine knows, but many of you don't know that I have dozens of detailed notebooks from my time in monks' life and monasteries. I've even written books that I've never even published. They're handwritten. I want to include with those volunteers who are willing to type and transcribe. I want to offer everything that I've ever known. And it isn't just about me. It's a lot of things from Mahasi Sayadaw, Sayadaw U Pandita. I would write down by hand every one of his Dharma talks. This is long before the iPhone. Every interview that I listened in on over a 25-year period, I took meticulous notes, not the name of the person who is irrelevant, what the teachings were. I want all those notebooks to be offered in an online library. All these videos over the last 35 years, I want them offered freely for people to use. But this World Dharma online course is my next radiant expression of public work, and I want to offer it for free. So if you want to be a part of that, there's things that you might be able to offer, whether it be audio or video or transcribing. Please let me know. Time is of essence, to say the least. I am now on the anti-ticking clock transcendental anatta actualization Dharma. But they made it very clear to me, Alan, you could die any second. Just like you can. Nothing special, Alan. However, you've got one up on them because you've got the aneurysm. No, 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 no. 250,000 people will die today, just like each of us will at some point. So that's it. That's sort of the next iteration, part 4 here of Uncertain Futures, and the angel of death has come to ask to dance. And I invite her. Who are you, Mara? And the goddesses and the yoginis, the tantrikas, the yogis, the pragmatists, the healers, the psychoanalysts, the psychedelic psychotherapists, whomever you are, men and women, I am inviting you, come, let's create something, if it's possible, immediately at the end of this month through July and August on Maui. Need support. Please support it financially, emotionally, whatever way you can. Let's come together and do something so rad. Needless to say, let's just diss the small talk at the door. Let's have our 10 commandments. Radical transparency from the first second, okay? None of us have the answers from second number 2. And let's put into the dream retreat the things that we would like to see created. Call out to our brothers and sisters on islands around the globe, and let's create a vortex of nibbanic, transformational, awakening as we evolve as U Pandita. My beloved late teacher, Sayadaw U Pandita, he introduced me to the concept of rebirthing in life. Rebirthing. And that level of healing that comes from that. And so that's my invitation to you, angel of death. I want to rebirth with you, baby. I want to love you, my love. I don't want to dissolve your fear that you want to shroud me in. I want to celebrate, let's overcoming fear together and transform your idea of even who you are into something larger than me or you, together in this nibbana field of transcendental liberation. From my heart to yours, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for supporting me in the way that you can. Thank you for continuing to stay close. And if we never see each other again, please forgive me for those people in my life that I have ridiculed, that I have reviled, that I have spoken ill about, either to your face or behind your back. Men and women that I've hurt or shamed, blamed. Women specifically as a heterosexual in my life. If I've done anything to harm you, to belittle you, to make someone think less than you. I spent a year in this room and I wrote about it in my book Without Names. I dug deep into my own conscience and forgave myself, and I publicly say to you right now, I honor that it was wrong. I will not even ask for forgiveness from you. But to know that you're unconditionally loved, and there's no way for me to live in the violation of apartheid or separation. When I love, I love. And so whomever you are, if you're out there and listening and you want to consecrate a new dimension together, a new dimension of love and relationship together as friends, you're very welcome to come into my life to break bread, men and women both. If you hear this, put the past behind us. I have done that. I have no capacity to process anything from yesterday, none. But if you want to move into the future and know that who we are together is being reborn again in this rebirthing process, I am right with you, sister. I'm right with you, brother. And let us take Nibbana all the way to the heights of arhatship with our beloved next Buddha, Maitreya, and in my case, my final birth through Tusita as a deva with my samsaric sangha, and may the truth of what I'm saying, the parami and the dedication of the aditant, the intention, the deep chaitana of what I'm saying, may the truth of what I share today be so powerful and true that it comes into fruition, that my words bear the fruit of my desire for the betterment of myself and my family and for the future of life. Namaste.